So, welcome to Indie Influencer, where we chat with the trendsetters of independent art. And today we'll be talking with Attila Juhasz, who's a Renaissance man, entrepreneur, musician, and CEO of ACWTV, which is featured on Roku TV and other streaming services. And ACWTV has a fantastic lineup of classic content across many channels, and I'm very excited to hear all about them.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. So,
My pleasure.
yeah, ACWTV is stands for Attila's Creative Works, which is my company. I became a Roku developer and launched my first channel in 2015. So it's actually my 11th anniversary for doing the Roku channels, and it's been a great ride.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. So ACWTV, how it came about was I originally was in the entertainment industry via a website I built back in 1996 called horrormovies.com. I then sold that channel, that website, to a company called Unipix Entertainment Inc., where they hired me as the director of internet marketing. And that was considered the first genre website ever. But Unipix is one of their revenue streams was enhancing and re-releasing public domain content.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started learning more about the business side of public domain content, and that's the majority of the content that's on my channels. So I've been a collector of public domain content for years, and then it all came together, and I put out my first channel, which was Whimsy TV, and then I quickly followed that with Western TV movie classics, which still remains in the top of the classic movie apps of all of Roku.
Right, I understand that one is hugely popular.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my flagship channel.
fantastic. Yeah. What was the original content of Whimsy TV, and then how did that evolve? Did you collect? Do you remember the first public domain piece that
Yeah,
that you acquired? Yeah.
actually, even though I learned my chops at Unipix with public domain, the story actually goes way back to my childhood, and it's specifically a film called The Gorilla with the Ritz brothers. Now, my father, who came from Hungary in 1956 during the revolution, and I was born in New York in the 60s. Um, he told me some of his favorite experiences were going to a theater with his dad before, unfortunately, he was murdered by the SS for sheltering a Jewish family. And but before that, my father and his dad used to frequent the local cinema, and two of his favorite movies at the time, which both came out in 1939, was Gunga Din and The Gorilla. Now, I knew Gunga Din very well. We watched it every time it came on television, but for some reason, The Gorilla never came on. And I searched, TV guides all the time, and for years, nothing. And then in the 80s, I went into a 5 and 10 kind of stores, a discount center, and I saw a VHS tape of The Gorilla. And I said, wow, let me get this for my dad. And so
Wow.
I got the VHS and we watched it together and we had a great time. And then when I went back to that store again, I saw another copy of The Gorilla, but distributed by someone else. And I said,
Uh,
what's going on here? And then I saw some other films like Ghost on the Loose, Spooks Run Wild, and
mhm.
noticed the other companies were doing that. So in the 80s, I really became aware of public domain. It wasn't until I uh, joined Unipix that I learned where to obtain and trade movies and things of that nature. And yeah, and so all of that, the gorilla is like my inspiration for, because it's in remembrance of my dad. And then it also was one of the first films that I showed on Whimsy TV. And then I just search and search and found out there are hundreds of wonderful pieces, and there's some not so great pieces, but still worth viewing and knowing what was going on in those eras.
Right, very, just for the historic value and for
Yeah.
what the vibe was at the time. And I have to imagine in the 80s there must have been legions of these public domain videos just coming out and being just slapped on VHS by everyone who could
Yeah.
get their hands on a print of them.
Yeah.
You
And in
know?
fact, another movie that I loved as a child was Burt I. Gordon's Magic Sword. And turns out I found a public domain copy of that as well. And so it seems like
Wow.
quite a few of my childhood favorites were actually public domain films that I didn't realize. And that explains why some of those were always on television because they didn't have to pay the licensing rights.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, what, this is on all the time. I wonder why in different,
Yeah, yeah.
iterations. Like, yeah, just as a side note, one thing that I found was fascinating, segue, and then we'll get back to it. There was a whole controversy about It's a Wonderful Life that Amazon Prime was showing it without the
Yeah.
Potterville sequence because of old copyright issues that they were using an old version where they had the sidestep, the
Yeah,
copyrighted part of the story. I thought we were talking about that all through the holiday season. I was absolutely fascinated by that.
yeah, I stay clear of It's a Wonderful Life just
Yeah.
because I know of those situations. And while the film is public domain, I believe it's the dialogue that it was for some reason a separate copyright.
Yeah, something to do with that part of the story was
Yeah.
held, by someone else, and people were like, "Well, he changed his mind awful quick. I don't know what happened,
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, but that's why I'm fascinated by the notion of public domain, and I feel like it's there's something about this the history of these things. Like you mentioned, the Rich brothers, who I'm vaguely familiar with, but not the same level as Laurel and Hardy or
Yeah, the Marx
Abbott and
Brothers.
Costello or the Marx Brothers. They're a name that kind of passes through, but I think they were probably very much contemporaries of the same caliber at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, Mel Brooks cited one of the Ritz brothers as the funniest man he ever saw in his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that price, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, that Ritz brother made a cameo appearance in Mel Brooks' silent movie.
Oh, did he? I didn't realize that. Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true tribute right there. But I think what I'm like just stunned by is just the amount of material and the accessibility of it, which I think it's the idea that all of these classic films are now on streaming, which is like again, like I was saying earlier, a past meets future situation,
Mhm. Mhm.
where people who can appreciate things or remember them from the past. I remember I grew up in the '80s, and I remember a lot of these movies, being on. That was my childhood, and being fascinated by. I think Abbott and Costello was on every Sunday at 11:30
Mhm.
when I
Oh
was
yeah,
growing up,
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
and March of the Wooden Soldiers on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, and all the uh, Giant Ape movies and things like that. So it's like and there's sort of things that were just a whole part of my childhood. And then just to know that there's so much more,
Hmm.
and that it's available and it's being preserved and being packaged in a way that new generations can discover.
Hmm.
Um, I think the most exciting bit to me is the notion of you have all these like content creators and indie influencers and reactors
Hmm.
who are starting to discover classic film and TV
Right.
and respond to them. It's so heartwarming to me to watch them, discover old films, classic films from the golden age. And I think this is a great conduit for them to be able
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
with both the free services and the subscription services. I
Yeah.
understand there's many of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool as even for myself when I watch some of these for the first time that how much is borrowed from these older films in more contemporary films like
Right.
not some things that you thought was totally original. No, if you dig deep it's not. And some of the wonderful comparisons were like for example Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Hmm.
There's a scene where Indy gets his whip under the truck and goes under it and to the front, rather front to the back. And Zorro did the same exact stunt.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love finding things out like that, and just sort of tropes, musical cues, techniques, the scroll at the beginning of Star Wars. If you go
Oh
back
yeah.
to,
Right.
the Flash Gordon serials, which is what that
Absolutely.
came from, they're right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the musical cues are similar, you get to hear the
Absolutely.
Wilhelm
The
scream
musical
throughout
cues.
history. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is like, for example, regarding Flash Gordon,
Mhm.
only one of the three serials are public domain at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe is technically the only public domain, which I have. And now the reason for that was the copyright elapsed. And but a lot of the other films like March of the Wooden Soldiers is not public domain, because they renewed. However, like this year, all the films from 1930 became public domain. So
Right.
now we're in a momentum where every year something fantastic. So last year I had the Coconuts, Marx Brothers. This year Animal Crackers became public domain.
All right.
So
Yeah.
now think of this. So in 3 years, 1933, King Kong.
That's amazing. Oh
Yeah,
wow. That's going to be fantastic.
yeah, there's my King Kong character back there.
Brilliant.
So yeah, so the content every year there's going to be a huge influx of films added to my network of channels. Yeah.
Great. I remember, yeah, the big story. I think last year was the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon was
Oh,
public domain. So, you
Steamboat
know,
Willie. Yeah.
Steamboat Willie, right? And Popeye, I believe.
Yeah. Quite a
And
bit of Popeye is already public domain, at least
mm,
about 30 cartoons,
wow.
which
Yeah,
I have. All collectively, my channels, I have you know, many here, many there, but collectively I have 2,000 videos airing on my channels.
that's incredible. So it's just
Yeah.
like so much content, and you can consume it in a way that's sort of like very traditional.
Yeah.
You just watch them and just sort of like experience them the way we used to growing up, which I was sort of at the very tail end of the old way of the antenna TV things and just
Yeah.
discovering things.
Yeah.
And I miss that, just like stumbling onto things. That oh well, I'm just like enjoying these old films and sort of like just looking into this whole world and wondering what things were like back then and how people experienced them,
Mhm.
and which is why I think this is just an incredible opportunity, and it's something that's I'm really glad to help share the word about.
Yeah.
Let's see, so Western TV and movie classics. So we say we're looking at Bonanza, I think, and
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
one. I remember that growing up very
There's
keenly.
one
Yeah.
there's one series that I discovered back when I started Western TV Movie Classics was a series I never heard of, but I absolutely love. It's called Tate, and it's about the one-armed bounty hunter. But it was created and written by the person who created the Dirty Harry films,
Wow.
and the scripts for every episode are fantastic, and the cast is fantastic. I mean, you have episodes where Martin Landau, Robert Redford, and I mean there's many. Every episode has someone you'll recognize,
I love that. It's like to
and
see
it's
them in
such
their
a
formative years,
yeah
you
such a
know.
well-written show, and well directed and well acted.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember how the
Yeah.
craft was so, even though it was in its relative infancy,
Mhm.
not quite, but but was in much more early stages, was so meticulously put together, and just a combination of seeing how well they were done without all of the tricks that we know today, but you
Yeah.
still saw
Yeah.
like the beginnings of things, of beginnings of CGI and of animation and of innovation in that respect, and then seeing people that we know from other things. Like I know there's the early Betty White shows, and you
Right.
said I
Right.
remember there's a Mickey Rooney show. I understand that I hadn't known about.
Yeah, that's pretty funny
Yeah,
actually. I did
yeah,
enjoy watching that one. Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
yeah,
and the Betty White shows are Life with Elizabeth and
and
Date with the Angels.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Yeah, and
Good
it's
stuff.
she's been such an icon to so many generations that I think people who just say, oh, they just say, oh yeah, the Golden Girls, yeah, it's like, but they don't realize that she came from some, so many different classic comedies. I mean, even think like Harry Morgan from MASH was on 10 different TV shows
Right,
before he was on
Dragnet.
that one.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right, exactly. Yeah, and some Dragnet is public domain. About 20 episodes. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and there's another show, speaking of Dragnet, but another detective show a crime drama that I discovered. Again, I never heard of until I got into the Roku channels. There's a series called Decoy, and it's the first series ever filmed on location in New York City.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And Beverly Garland plays a undercover policewoman detective. And again, another well-written, well-acted, and sometimes dark series. Yeah.
Right, and you don't think of things from the past being as dark, you know? It's like
Oh,
I think people don't recognize how much different shades that vintage TV and film had. You know, it's like which is another reason why it's like I always say that I like pride myself on being interested in things that happened before I was born and media that happened before I was born and
yeah.
consuming them the way I would new things. And I think there was a time when people sort of lost sight of that, but I think now because people are becoming content creators and content consumers in a way that's allows them to experience so much more,
Hmm.
in a very professional way. Like I said, my favorite thing is these young, Gen Z YouTube reactors who are experiencing old films. There was one that I almost was in tears about. They were watching 12 Angry Men, the original, this like, very young,
Yeah.
video YouTuber,
Mhm.
absolutely mesmerized by it. And
Wow.
I said,
Yeah.
that is such a positive thing to see.
That is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, just absolutely stunned by it, and just like I'm taking notes and watching it over again and discussing it and things like that. I'm just like, and these are relative kids, and it's like, and
Yeah.
they're and that's why these ACW is such a godsend, really. It's like it is just a treasure trove to me, and I'm just very grateful. I'm excited to like to spread the news and be the town crier.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's picked up quite a bit of momentum over the years, and my biggest year obviously was unfortunately 2020 and 2021 when we had the lockdown, and it seemed
Right,
like everybody was watching television all day long, and
exactly.
but that moment actually allowed me to diversify and launch a few more channels and build my network. And now I'm actually excited to build Channel Indie with Jay Michaels. And so that's another really exciting venture.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm excited to be there too. It's like just a segue to Jay, actually. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the Jay Watch and how that came about. And
Oh, okay.
uh,
I met Jay, gosh, about 10 years ago or so, and we were working on a series called Terror Talk, where he was the host and I was doing the back end stuff. And we just hit it off, became friends, and then a couple of years ago, I called up Jay. I said, "Hey Jay, I have my own channel, and aside from all the public domain stuff, I'd like to have some original content. And how about doing a series and be the next Robert Osborne, like TCM?" And he was all into it. So we went through and put together a nice list of films, and Jay recorded his monologue and did a lot of research. And it's wonderful because they last about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the feature. And it's a solid intro to give people a lot of information of the cast, the director, the history, whether it was based on a book, on a play, and things of that nature. And so every episode we just had a lot of fun doing it. I think we did 23 episodes altogether.
terrific. Yeah. And that's an aspect of it that I'm fascinated by. Whenever I watch a movie, my homework is to go and read up on it.
Yeah,
Again, like
yeah,
I know you guys are very, very enthusiastic about that as well, about
yeah.
the credits and where it came from. Was it a book, was it a play, was there an earlier version, and the production, what happened during the production, and things like that, and how it originally did, and what the people say about it, what the reviews were at the time and what they are now, everything about it.
Yeah, it's he really brought a good edge to it. And then I did some creative editing and put some examples up to support his monologue. And yeah, I mean, there were things that I didn't even know about some of the films that Jay brought up. So it's a real informative. And like I said, it's short, and the intros are short, but they're chock full of information to get you excited to want to watch the feature that comes right after that.
Oh, there's nothing like being prepped. It's like, well, here's the things to know about this, and then
Right.
have a little, post game talk about it, and and that's one thing that's one of my favorite things in the world is just to sort of like dissect with other aficionados, and then be in a realm where you can actually like have other enthusiasts, where everybody's as excited about it as you are, and it's like, and it just starts for great makes for great conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. As you can see back here, these are the books I grew up with,
Hmm.
like the Encyclopedia of Film. I mean, what 10-year-old kid sits there and reads an encyclopedia about films,
I did.
and study. I literally studied those books. And then I actually did study film in college as well.
Excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. It's like it's something I've just dabbled in but as professionally, but I've always been just absolutely enthused about just taking in everything, not just the movie itself or the TV show itself, but everything about it, and
Right.
and following the actors to other movies, and you could also see them in blah 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 and all that, and
Right.
then finding out where they started, and
Hmm.
which is great because like so many of those stars, we know so much more about today as well, and it's like, wait, it's this there's nothing like getting to see them in their first film or their first. I remember, I think I saw The Thin Man when I was a kid and was very much in love with that series, and seeing Jimmy Stewart, and I think was maybe his very first movie,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
maybe
he's very young
movie.
in that.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful film and a wonderful series. I'm a big fan of William Powell's. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brenda Lloyd. It was like I remember being 9 years old and being absolutely like enthralled
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
those
and
things.
and
Yeah,
and coincidentally, he also prior to the Thin Man series, he did the Philo Vance detective series. And I now have four Philo Vance movies on my channels as well.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's just incredible. Again, it's like I can't get over the idea that we take this technology, which
Mhm.
we've most of us have embraced, of streaming, which I've completely fully embraced, and what I will do, is always do a deep dive and see, okay, well, what's interesting things are on. We were talking, last night about interesting documentaries and indie movies that were just under the radar and classic films that people, maybe forgot about or just resurfaced, and this the history behind them. And it's like, and the whole things with the Hays Code and how they made things back then and what they could do and what they couldn't do. And like you said, it's like they went places that one wouldn't expect. I mean, you get somebody today, it's like, oh, that was before they really were able to do interesting things, but it's not true. They did fascinating things.
Yeah. I mean, you take a show like Tales of Tomorrow,
Mhm.
just fantastic series, and I have two full seasons on my channels, and they're shot almost like a stage play, a very
Right.
limited camera movement, very limited locations, but the storytelling and the acting, it just shows you how much you could achieve, and the storytelling um, through dialogue rather than visuals. You
Right.
you you may even imagine that you saw something that they're talking about. You know what I mean? That the
Exactly.
story just carries. I mean, that's another fantastic series. You have a very young Paul Newman in there,
Okay.
and then another episode has Leslie Nielsen with Brian Keith, and it's just. I mean, the UFO stories are just fantastic and great sci-fi. And that series was actually awarded a special sci-fi achievement award from the U.S. government.
Wow.
Yeah, for just telling great science fiction stories. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. I was thinking about another thing, again, this is a little segue, that I went down a rabbit hole
Mhm.
recently about a TV show. Unfortunately, there's no video trace of this, but it was called the television Ghosts, and it ran locally for 2 years in the early
Wow.
1930s. Uh,
Really?
yeah, and that's a story for another time, but it's just like that's something that would be such a holy grail if they could find any footage of this because it was so early.
Yeah.
But it was just a guy in a ghost costume telling true crime stories, however 6, 7 viewers were out there, And I
Wow.
think it was, but I bring it up because I was absolutely enthralled by the idea that
Uh-huh.
they would TV that early, and people are wondering they can't find a single picture or sound clip of it, and that would be something to I mean, it's going to be tough, but it's like and again, it's just like when they ever capture find old TV shows that were thought lost or any movies that were thought lost, and when they find them, I mean, I think it is just such one of the most extraordinary, miraculous things that we're finding this material, or if not finding it, then at least having a place to air it again and giving it a home again. The thing that I actually wanted to touch upon, which I'm absolutely like intrigued by, is the Halloween-a-thon.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, yeah. I put together a whole bunch of different shorts and films and TV episodes and cartoons that were all Halloween related. And Jay did a wonderful job doing his little intros. And so yeah, and that combined with some of the earlier Jay Watch genre related films that we did, combined with the new stuff and those Halloween, rather the scary films, ended up being 24 hours of content. And so we just ran it 2 years ago on Halloween, and it was just wonderful. Yeah,
Brilliant.
got a lot of good reaction from that.
Yeah, I love the idea that it's so coming from so many different sources.
Yeah, yeah, like
Um,
like you wouldn't expect, like to even to find it in like old cartoons. So we had like first of all, how can you do it without doing a segment on Casper, you know?
right.
And then even Popeye had a wonderful episode, Fright to the Finish, which is a Halloween episode itself. And then there were, shorts, and then I picked out some of the what I thought were the more intense episodes of, like, Tales of Tomorrow and One
Mhm.
Step Beyond. And then of course, we did our horror films such as House on Haunted Hill, which is one of my favorites. Yeah, I absolutely love Vincent Price in that one. And
Classic.
Horror Hotel is another
Mhm.
another another tremendous one with Christopher Lee. So and of course we did Night of the Living Dead, the most
Mhm.
popular public domain film out there,
Right. Yeah.
which almost became instantly public domain because they never copyrighted it.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that's so funny.
It's
Yeah.
so sad. That movie
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
so influential
Mhm.
and more or less recreated the entire zombie lore. Yeah,
Right. That was everything. And to think they didn't think to
yeah,
claim it. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
yeah. I
What was
actually even worked with George Romero myself.
you did?
Yeah, yeah. In
Well,
2012, I released a video game called Zombie Squash, and I hired him to be my lead actor.
I was hoping
Originally,
to ask you about that,
yeah.
actually.
Originally, I asked Christopher Lee,
Hmm.
and his agent actually turned it down. But
Mm.
then I hired George Romero right after that, and it was wonderful working with George. But then I got in touch with Christopher Lee's webmaster for some other reason, and his webmaster was actually a good friend of his. And he mentioned it to Christopher Lee, and Christopher Lee said, "I never got the offer. I would have done it."
Get that. That often happens, though. You
Yeah.
hear a lot of that. That's a shame.
Had I
You never
gone through
go.
informal methods, like contacting his webmaster and say, "Hey, can you get a hold of Christopher Lee?" But instead, I
Hmm.
went I went the proper route.
Right. That's understandable,
It
though.
worked
That's like,
out.
yeah, yeah. It did. It must have been George Romero. Must have been, fantastic. That's what a
Yeah,
great experience. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
really was. The game itself,
Hmm.
unfortunately, didn't make the money back. In fact, after a year, the actually after like 6 months, the ad agency that I partnered with to generate revenue from the free app, uh, they disappeared. They were in the
Oh,
UK and they just disappeared. So all the money that was supposed to come never came. That was on
oh,
hold with them. And they
oh boy.
literally just disappeared. The website disappeared, the company disappeared, everything. I mean, it was
Wow.
it was a regular company, a legit company. It's not like I was scammed by like some overnighter. But it was just this agency in the UK that just went under and disappeared.
I see. So
So
they didn't intend to do what they did. They just
yeah,
sort
so
of
that was my
okay.
last
Yeah.
foray into the actual video game, and then I switched my coding into getting more into apps like the Roku channels and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Um, we were talking about some celebrity encounters. I understand there was a you did some work with Rob Halford from Judas Priest.
Oh my goodness, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for forever. I in 1992, I ran my own magazine called New York Onslaught in New York, and I had a wonderful distribution through Tower Records in the tri-state area in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So, it was great. It had 20,000 circulation, and I did a cover story interview with Rob when I watched a press conference, or rather, I listened to a press conference on the radio that he formed a new company. So I was literally the first reporter to contact him to after that press conference to request an interview. And so we did. We did a cover story interview, and we hit it off. And then 2 years later, he contacts me and says, I'm forming a new band. Would you like to interview? And I loved your writing. Would you like to interview all the band members and write the band bio for us to submit to the label? And it turned out to be his band Fight, and with the album War of Words. And yeah, I interviewed all 5 members, um, wrote this nice bio, and they submitted it, and they got the deal with Epic, Sony Epic. And then uh, in 1990, I believe it was 95 or 94, that I introduced Rob to the internet. I said, Rob, there's this new thing. It's incredible. It's the internet, and all the
Hmm.
college kids are using it. Now, this was when it was a text-based world only. No web browsers, nothing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think we were one of the first bands, commercial bands, to literally go into these college forums, and I would post tour dates, do Q&As for Rob, and just put news up there. And then I even suggested, there are these things called BBSs, bulletin board systems. And I actually was a SysOp, a system operator for another BBS. But then I suggested, why don't we throw up the album cover as wallpaper, you know, for people's computers, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, and that spread, and then more and more news picked up on, and we got the word out on the tour, and it was a very successful tour. Now, fast forward to 2005. Uh, Rob's manager contacts me and says, Rob is going to start a new label called Metal God Entertainment. Would you like to come out here and help run it and build it? So I said, oh, yeah, I'd like that. And then so he flew my family out, and we checked it out, and it sounded great, but I actually turned it down. And then they called back and they said, well, why are you turning it down? I said, I need more money if I'm going to relocate my family from New York to here. I can't be it
Right.
can't be a parallel move in my career.
No, it's a big
So
upheaval.
so
Yeah.
we negotiated, and we had a good deal, and I helped run his little empire there from 2005 until 2012. So,
Brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, it was and the company closed, so that's why I no longer worked with him.
Right. And that takes you up
And then
to
right after
yeah.
that,
Hmm.
that's when so since I was looking for new opportunities, I said, let me go back into my entrepreneurial ways.
We were talking about the whimsy and how the other channels followed on.
Yeah, yeah. I what I did was started thinking about more niche. So Whimsy TV is all inclusive, has everything. And then when I saw what I did with Western TV and movie classics being specifically just Westerns, I said, okay, let me go niche. So then I created Yesterfear, which is just genre related, Faith and Family TV, which is more like faith based, and some rated G type of family movies. Um, Hollywood Stooges, which is just like has the Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello, Lauren Hardy, Buster Crabbe, I mean Buster Keaton, and and a bunch of those. So it's like more niche, I guess is
Right.
my point. And that's also how like Channel Indie will be sort of a niche for independent creators as well, and respecting and honoring the indie films of the past and indie television of the past. So it's more, the growth has been niche. I would say that's what led me to having such a variety of channels.
Right, and I think it's good for the viewer or the audience to have specific choices. I think people thrive on that. It's like,
Yeah.
when you're getting the the Western Channel or the boomer horror, which I think is a fantastic
Oh, baby
idea.
boomer horror, right? Right.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
just like almost parallel with Yes the Fear, but since I had baby boomer TV already, I said, you know what, let me go down that road, and so I did baby boomer TV, I had baby boomer horror, and baby boomer cartoons. So this,
Right.
yeah,
Which is like it's something, and again, it's like there's something about that time period that sort of informs like I said, maybe I'm Gen X, but it's like, but I what I was ex what I experienced as Gen X was baby boomer content.
yeah, yeah,
Which I think that was a time when it really did sort of like it was handed down to different generations, and I think then there was a point where, as things changed in the way that we consume things, and people started just sort of like consuming their own little corner of things and became more and more niche. But which is why I think this is a great way to connect the past to the present, and connect people who appreciated those classic films and TV shows and cartoons with people who I think are now starting to consume differently. And like I said, I think maybe in a way, 2020 was sort of almost like a great, in an unusual way. I mean,
right,
if there
yeah,
was any silver lining, it was that it was a time of discovery because people had time to do that.
exactly, right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. When you go back and you look at like the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the artwork is just spectacular. I mean, yes, they did the rotoscoping, which with filming the actors and then painting over them and so forth. But the background, hand painted the shots and is just fantastic. And you could see like series like Batman and Superman that came out in the 90s. Those cartoons were really going back to that era and giving it
Hmm.
that film noir kind of approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Art,
was.
film noir and Art Deco combined. So it's like that. It's that style.
And people loved it. People ate it
Yeah,
up, and it's
yeah,
like and not everyone might have realized that this is harking back to an old style. I remember
right.
I took a peek at the very first Batman serial. I
Oh,
was
right.
looking at that
Yeah,
a few weeks ago, and just absolutely
yeah,
fascinated by it.
yeah. That's
Um,
not public domain yet, but it will be soon. Yeah, there were two serials, Batman and Robin.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's fascinating. And again, yeah, it's like, and they'll be along soon. And it's like even today, people will say, "Oh, the original Batman with Adam West," and I keep thinking, no, no, it wasn't. There were two before him.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and when you tell people that, it's almost like this mind-blowing, what?
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and people who are curious and enthusiastic like we are will
Mhm.
start to investigate that,
Yeah, yeah,
and go down those very delightful rabbit holes,
yeah.
which is why I
Absolutely.
think this is just such a fantastic thing, you
Yeah,
know.
it's like even though the serial Buck Rogers is not public domain yet. However, the film edited out of the serial Planet Outlaws is public domain, and actually
Mhm.
Jay Watch did that. We cover that as well. But when you look at that story of Buck Rogers, it predates the Captain America story, and it's all about a guy who was a pilot who was in suspended animation and then woke up in the future. So the same thing
Amazing.
with like Captain America. So you could see those influences.
I love connecting those dots. I
Yeah.
really do. I remember hearing it when I went down the Batman rabbit hole, or Bat Hole. There was a movie in 1926 called The Bat, which has a lot of
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
has a lot of what that.
With the cartoon outline of the bat is in that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Another
It-
Vincent Price classic, which is on Whimsy
mhm.
TV.
Amazing, fantastic. Oh, I love that. It all comes back.
Yeah,
Just seeing these people, perform their craft and what they did back then and how they achieved things,
oh
and
yeah,
being able to re-experience that. I mean, especially now because I think people are so fascinated with the technology that we have. I think there's a lot of people who are fascinated not only in the content of the old films, but how they did it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm really having a new appreciation for the silent films of Buster Keaton. Talk about a crazy stunt man.
Hmm.
There's that famous scene, where the building falls and he's right with where the window panel is.
See, I was actually looking at one of his stunts. I know the one with the building crashing. People were terrified at the time, and and I'm terrified watching it, even though that he's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and he would like walk off a train track. The
Hmm.
split second a train would could almost hit him. And
Yeah,
also
it's
another
real.
person who's incredible with the stunts was Harold Lloyd.
Hmm.
I mean, real zany stuff. It's just like so dangerous. Like they would never allow those stunts to be done today without a lot of other checks and balances in place.
Oh, I know. Everything was just like, let's just like see what happens. It was a free for all. I saw the one
Yeah.
with Buster Keaton where I was just fascinated by how they did it, where he jumps right through a woman's stomach, really, and comes out the other side, and how they
That is a fantastic stunt. Yeah, that mesmerized me. And then I saw how they did it, and then I was like, wow,
amazing.
that is so creative. So
Yeah, just to
creative.
think of that,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know, and
very wild.
yeah, and that's why it's almost disappointing because you could do that so easily with trickery right now. But just to
Yeah.
think about what it took to be that innovative, and to say, well, here's how we'll do it, and it looks flawless and
It does
stunning.
look flawless. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, I mean, just the silent era was just stunning. I mean they had some very creative trick photography too. There's this Chaplin film where he's ice skate rather roller skating in a department store, and there's a ledge. And he's like right along the ledge, but it's superimposed like when you see the how it's done. But again, it looked absolutely flawless in editing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that. That is just like, oh wow,
Yeah.
brilliantly done. And I
Yeah.
was like
And
watching him
some of those
skate
early
back and going,
films, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. They get my heart going. It's like, because I know that, they're doing real dangerous things at times.
yeah. And you
Yeah.
have that God's eye view. It's like, oh wow, any second now, and it's like incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fascinated by that. Yeah, and yeah, it's just so much fun to just like talk about it and just like dissect how they did it and the magic tricks and
Yeah.
the innovation
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
magnificent. So that's why it's like it's just fun to kind of like have a place to go see all these things and
Yeah.
experience them, and at your fingertips.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the films I don't have, which I would like to probably accumulate, are the Georges Méliès silent films that were made in France. I mean, the only one I have right now is a Trip to the Moon, but it shows how like how much um, innovation you could do with one camera, one set, and all about timing and editing, and it's just fascinating work.
It is, yeah. It's just to see people who will not be stopped by the limits of the technology at the time, who could never have dreamed of what we do now, but just made things happen. And they do say, I mean, I think there is a school of thought that says practical effects age better than CGI in
Yeah,
many cases, depending on, it's like there's something about that, going back to the 70s and beyond that. It's like there's
yeah,
uh I had to bring up the woman who changes into a monster right before our eyes that they did with the colored red lenses.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Oh, I love that one. I'm just absolutely stunned by that, and it's like how's the trick done? It's like so
yeah,
to me it's a combination of the craft of the storytelling and the actors in their, early, stages of development, plus the tech of the time. I mean, it just creates a really fascinating and enjoyable experience.
yeah. And I think you could see a lot of that being uh, taken into consideration when in the films of the 80s, especially like someone like Sam Raimi who used practical effects with like the Evil Dead. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I thought the 80s had a lot of, some people consider some of the stuff cheesy, but if you could, have that suspension of disbelief, I find that more charming and more entertaining than let's say a CGI film from let's say the late 90s or today could be considered like cheesy, like really cheesy, but
Yeah.
and bad because it's technology related, that you could see what could be done. But when you look at something that's done with just real physical practical effects, it doesn't seem to age as bad.
Right.
There's like I said, there's a level of charm to it.
Exactly. There is tremendous charm to it, which is why I'd rather watch like a old Doctor Who than the latest
Right.
cinema,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
$1 billion extravaganza, really.
Yeah.
As lovely as it might be. But and true, and it's just getting back to the imagination of it. Like,
Yeah.
you can take I'm somebody who's worked on stage in a million black boxes, and the things that we could do,
Right.
once if the audience is on your side and you're acting it well and telling the story well, then you forget you're just in this little space, without a lot of furniture. So,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
like I said, everything was like a stage play back then, and
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, stage play on TV.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of appreciation for that way of doing things. So this is like such a great, uh, platform to have it all, together and to just re-experience it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. I did want to talk a little bit about the book a little bit, and maybe a little bit about your
Thanks.
experiences
Yeah.
as a musician, because I know Gotta Win It. I heard the song that
Okay.
you guys did, which is great. That's a fantastic stadium and
Yes.
themic piece of work. And so I was interested to hear about the book that came out last year with the same title. You
Yeah.
can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. It's actually right here.
Mhm.
I'll give it a
There you
plug.
go. Yeah, lovely.
And yeah, it's basically my entire career. Some of the things I stated to you earlier, but yeah, it recounts my highs and lows. Working like from Unipix to rather like uh, creating the first genre website, horrormovies.com, and then selling it to a publicly traded company and becoming director of internet marketing. It's just a long journey, and hopefully when the feedback I've gotten from people who have read it are that they find it as a confidence booster to like never give up, and you can actually reach your dreams. Like there are a lot of people that that are into things like the law of attraction and of that nature,
Mhm.
and I didn't even realize I was kind of doing that stuff because when I was a teenager, my favorite people, musicians, the top three that I would always talk about, and you could ask any of my friends, were Rob Halford of Judas Priest, Michael Schenker of the band UFO, and Roy L. Brighton, the lead guitarist and singer of a band called Nectar. And who would know that I'd end up working with all three of those guys as an adult?
Exactly.
I interviewed Michael Schenker several times. I hung out with him at some conventions, and really nice guy. And then Roy L. Brighton, this band Nectar from Germany, and one of my all-time favorite albums is a progressive rock album called Remember the Future, and as well as another one called Recycled. But and actually, when I built New York horrormovies.com, I also built a website called nectar.com because I said this is some of the greatest music ever recorded in the progressive rock world. And not many people know them like they know Genesis, ELP, Yes. So I made the site just for that reason and I wasn't making any money on it. That was not my intent. It was just a
Right.
fan site. Although back then it cost a fortune to run websites.
Sure.
And but anyway, it grew so big that I was contacted by the band members and Roy L. Brighton in London, the guitarist and the bass player Mo Derek Moore in New Jersey. They haven't spoken in 10 years. And so my website, and I interviewed both of them, and somehow they reconnected and they both attributed my website for that.
That's brilliant.
And then not only that, they reconnected, reunited, and came out with a new album, like after not doing anything for over 20, 25 years.
You brought them back to life. That's
It was such,
fantastic.
to me, and that's in my book as well. That's like one of my all-time personal uh, favorite interactions and achievements was to see that happen.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
incredibly moving and inspiring too. It's like
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
that's what a story. That's like
Yeah, and Roy, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, um, he actually made a homemade CD of unreleased stuff, and as well as the best of his other stuff, and he made it for me and sent it to me personally. So I have a CD that has like one or two songs that were never released to the public.
oh, that's really special. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
done from his home studio. Yeah,
That's magnificent. That's what it's all about, And it
yeah,
sounds like It sounds like a fantastic journey. It's like, and again, a very inspiring one too, because like you said, it's like seeing one step lead to another, and one
Yeah.
encounter and one experience lead to another experience is what it's really all about.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, and that's and the progression with Rob Halford, uh, as I said, like I did the Michael Schenker Royal Brand, and then Rob Halford is the who was my all-time rock idol. You know
mhm.
that's who I ended up working for a long time, like in a serious business operation as well. And that's in the book, and then basically that was like a really big high for me working there. But then when the company had to dissolve, because there was the two owners actually got into a dispute, and so they dissolved the company. So again, I was in a position where here I am out of work, having to support a family of four.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the entrepreneur route. And
Hmm.
so Roku happened, and then after with the success of Roku to keep my momentum going, I started playing my guitar again, which I haven't done in a while. And then
Hmm.
I wrote the song "Gotta Win It." But I got to tell you, the reason I wrote that was a couple of years earlier. I'm a huge hockey fan, specifically New York Rangers, and
Nice.
a couple of years ago they made it to the conference finals, and I found myself saying before every game, "They gotta win it, they gotta win it, they
Hmm.
gotta win it, they gotta win it." And then all of a sudden, this like out of nowhere, this melody came into my head, and then I wrote it in one take. And then,
Brilliant.
yeah, and then I had a good friend of mine, Roy Z, who's a world-renowned producer, worked with, produced Judas Priest albums, the solo albums for Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden. He worked with Yngwie Malmsteen, Sepultura. I mean, the list goes on and on. And he was kind enough to do extra guitar on that, and so we did a music video and put it out. So it was nice to I consider myself an amateur guitarist, but I'm pretty good. But nothing like the realm of Roy Z. So it was really nice to collaborate with him. And then actually a few years before that, I wrote another song, which was just I wrote it for myself as a confidence booster called "I Am Power." And that's very much like a Judas Priest style song.
Yeah.
Roy
Right.
did all the mixing. I did all the guitars on that one.
Mhm.
And then Bobby Jarzambak, who was in the Halford band, and also drummer for many others. He did the drums for me, and then I had a wonderful vocalist called Nando Fernandez from South America who did the vocals, and that actually came out pretty good, and I'm very proud of that one. And that again, I wrote that for motivation, the lyrics and the music to just carry my momentum for myself. And then, feedback again were from people who were like, yeah, that's the kind of music I want, momentum and encouraging.
Right. And that, let's look, the show must go on, and it's
Yeah.
such a stadium like stomper, like a We Will Rock
Oh,
You
the
kind of
gotta
thing.
win
That's
it.
what I took
Yeah.
away from it,
Oh, thanks.
and it's
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah. And like I
uh
said, I did write that with the New York Rangers in mind. So I kind of had that sports vibe, so not,
yeah.
but I also, and then I wrote the song first and then the book followed because again, I was like, you know what, that the whole notion of gotta win it shouldn't just apply to sports. That's my mantra in life. Like, you face challenges and then at times you have to reinvent yourself like I did from going from Metal Gun Entertainment to becoming ACWTV, where I am right now.
Right.
And yeah, so it's just again a motivator and hopefully influences some others to think positive and just do the best that they can.
Absolutely. And I think sports is like a great jumping off point. I think it's a great metaphor for life too. It's like
Yeah,
I try
yeah,
to think in terms of uh being on a team, or being, three runs down in the ninth, and looking at life that way too. And so I think, the notion of 80,000 people chanting and stomping, gotta win it.
yeah,
You can take that and bring that sort of enthusiasm into your life.
yeah, yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of therapeutic to treat it as a sporting thing. It's like, well, it's a winning, and how do we get to the next level?
Yeah,
Which,
yeah,
it sounds like the book really sort of portrays that as well. I mean, all the
yeah.
different circumstances that, led you to where you are now, which is, and you've been successful in all these,
Yeah,
things, and they've sort of like dovetailed and influenced each other. It's like, and I can relate to that too because I do all these different things. I do, acting and music and voiceover and all these things to different degrees. And I like to see how they come together, and how one led to the next and how one encounter, one meeting led to the next one. And how you end up not only meeting your heroes, but working with them is
Yeah.
such inspiring and exciting thing.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And sports has been a big part of my life. My father used to be the manager of a Hungarian soccer club in the 60s. And it was the only like pro league in the country at the time, so like they would play teams from like Florida and all along the East Coast. And they won the championship several times in the country. So I was, surrounded by really good athletes, as a kid, and I love playing soccer as a kid too. But
Nice.
one of the things I like to share is when I was in grade school, I was on the basketball team, and I was horrible, terrible, terrible athlete then when I was in seventh and eighth grade, and I was in a game once, and I had a breakaway, and I was kind of running awkward and dribbling awkward, and the audience was laughing at me, and I missed the shot, and like I was being laughed at by adults and other kids, and I felt really bad. And so when I went home, and my dad was there, and when he took me home in the car, he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Oh, I said I didn't make the shot," and everybody's laughing at me. I wasn't feeling good. He goes, "Yeah, but the play before that, didn't you have an assist?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "And you guys won the game?" And I
Hmm.
said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well," he goes, "Never, oh, that guy never would have made the shot had you not make a pass." So
Exactly.
so he taught me that when you're contributing as on a team, it's not an individual thing. It's a team effort. And he said, you should be proud that you got the assist. And so, I said, I thanked him, and that was like stuck with me the rest of my life. And that was like very important to me that sometimes you have to have a team. You have to be a team member, to make things happen.
Exactly, and collaborate
Yeah,
and know where you can contribute and where your strengths
exactly.
are and focus on what you did to create that great outcome, and
Yeah.
and take it from there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great
And then,
advice.
yeah, but and then as I got older, I went from, 5'4" to 6 feet in like 2, 3 years in high
Wow,
school. So when I was a junior in high school, I was on the soccer team, and fortunately, I won MVP as a defenseman of the year, and then so that was nice.
terrific.
And then I went on to play like in other men's leagues, like a floor hockey league and a football league. So I continued playing sports and fairly well, throughout my 20s. And then so that mindset, like you said, that gotta win it. It is ingrained in me. Like you said, like sports can correlate with life itself.
It can. Yeah, there was a book, segue, called Joe Torre's Ground Rules for Winners. I'm a big Yankee fan.
Oh,
And he
okay.
talked about applying sports mentality to life. And that was a big influence on me as I found my way. So I can totally relate to that. And then, and the idea of, well, we'll get it next time and
Yeah,
never giving up and saying, well, we'll come back and do it again, and find our way and build a team and find people who can do certain things. There's nothing better. So
yeah,
it's very inspiring. As we start this new year, which the 11th season of the channel, the website, and I'd like to talk about what's coming up for the year and what you'd like people to know in the audience as we launch our indie influencer
yeah.
adventure.
Okay, well, starting off right away, like classic TV and film, I just added a slew of films, as I mentioned earlier, Animal Crackers, and about a dozen Lauren Hardy shorts, and a couple of Little Rascals shorts, and then and actually a few other things will be trickling in throughout the year. But my next biggest project and most exciting one is Channel Indie that I'm doing with Jay Michaels of JMGC LLC. And yeah, that's gonna it's gonna be a pretty cool endeavor in the sense that it gives a voice um, to people who might not necessarily be able to get their content out there. So whether you're an independent filmmaker who's been turned down by everyone, and so instead of like, or in addition to being, let's say, on YouTube, they could put their stuff online. Um, however, it seems some of the content that we've gotten already are some very, very cool independent pieces, shorts done on plays, play readings. What else we have? Music. We're going to have independent music as well on there. So again, it's a venue for anyone who's a creator, whether you're an influencer, just someone who's has a podcast or anything creative. I mean, literally anything that could be put on video will be welcome to be reviewed to see if it's a fit for Channel Indie. And yeah, and I'm also looking to add a section of people who have reels. So whether you're an actor or a director, an FX guy, I also want it to be like a showcase for people who want to collaborate with other people. So in addition to putting completed content, like I said, some of the shorts we have, whether they're films, readings, or podcasts, if they just have a simple reel that shows what they're capable of and what they want to do, that it's gonna be on the channel. And this way, I want it to be unique, first of all, that something that no one else is doing. But I also want it to be a place where you could discover something you never thought you'd discover to begin with. So, you're coming for one thing, and then all of a sudden you're going to see something that could be completely quirky, or just something that looks so intriguing you have to check it out. So again, there's so much independent talent out there, and I think Channel Indie is a good starting spot to grow and build a huge network of independent creators.
I think it's a magnificent concept, and as somebody who is one of those independent creators, I'm very grateful for it, and to tell people about it because it's important. There's
Yeah.
so many. I come from a community, of artists of all kinds, of theater, kids and musicians, writers, actors, everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything imaginable. And I think it's important for them to find a home that's more attuned to them than just the internet as a whole, like something that's about them, where they can be found. And again, where you can discover things. It's important for the audience too.
Yeah.
And again, I like to say I'm always somebody who's looking for, like you said, with Nectar, it's like looking for something that's a little bit under the radar that needs to be
Right.
championed and needs to be, uh, you know, that demands to be heard. And especially these days when there's so much out there and it's overwhelming to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a specific space for the independent artists, the local artists, the new voices, or even classic voices that are looking to get back into it. Like you
Yeah.
said, we've all gone through phases where it's like me, I'm a musician. There's phases where I didn't play, and there's phases where I was very busy, and then certain things led to other things, and but they all come together, and it just kind of like speaks to us that we are just artists, and we're looking for a community and a place to be heard, and a place for people who appreciate to listen and see and be a part of it. So
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
excited about it.
We're encouraging people who perform locally throughout the country, and bring that little local feel to the entire nation. So somebody
Mhm.
who has like, let's say, a regular gig in a wine bar, let's say, and it happens to be a great pianist or a wonderful guitarist. We're encouraging people to like film themselves, and then boom, we'll find a spot for them. So, and whether
Wonderful.
it's a local theater group or musicians or anything, a stand-up comic, that exactly the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Wonderful, and I think it's important for the artists to remember that they are artists, and it's like,
Yeah.
and they deserve to be heard and
Yes.
seen,
Mhm.
and that there's a home for them. So I think it's just absolutely magnificent.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. We expect the launch to be hopefully rather a relaunch, because we started out with a certain formula that I, after reviewing the process, I think the best bet is to make it a subscription channel all around.
Hmm.
So we're doing I'm doing the back end restructuring of that, and I expect it to the transition to be done within a week.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, I'm very glad to be a part of the inaugural moments.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah,
happy to have you there.
sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah,
All righty. Yeah, well, I think we'll end it on that very positive note. What do you say?
wonderful.
This has
Thank
been
you.
an absolute pleasure,
Oh, thank you.
and
It's
I
been a
think,
pleasure of mine to speak with you, and nice to meet you as well.
oh, you too. I think we have a lot in common. We're enthusiastic about a lot of the same things. So it's a
Absolutely.
real joy to be able to get into it and the to tell the world,
Mhm.
about Channel Indie and of, ACWTV. So
Yeah,
grateful for the opportunity. Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, and everybody stop by ACWTV for more information, acwtv.com, and we'll see you online. All
Fantastic.
right.
Okay.
Take
Till
care.
then. You too.
Bye bye.